Which science, by definition, allows for more than one opinion. Otherwise, you merely have the will of one man, which is the basis of cult.
If it's not in frame, it doesn't exist.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
I'm funny how? I mean funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you?
Where you been?
Drunk.
Wendy, darling, light of my life.
What's your one purpose in life?
To explode, of course.
I like death with sex. How about you, Casey? You like sex with death?
Yeah, so fuck off and die.
No, yeah, of course not.
right.
But if I was going to segue, I would segue something like, I'm going to kill you after this podcast.
Oh,
There's something like that. Something in, you know,
for
in
the
that
same
vein
for the
where
same
you
reason. It's because the semen.
Yeah.
This is the Cold Up Cinnamon Knowledge podcast. Jordan, the murderer over there. I'm Levi, the victim. But not,
Yeah, right.
not for the
but
same
the stoic.
reasons. Not for the
The-
same
dude.
reasons.
the stoic victim.
Not me. I'd be like, no, don't do it.
I know. Yeah.
I'm a coward.
Dude, 100%. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody would,
Please
but Brendan
don't
Gleeson,
kill me.
he was just like, he's like, I'm ready to die for my not sins.
Yeah, of course. Well, Brendan Gleeson, he's just, he's the guy, man. I don't know what it is. He is the guy.
Dude, I really, after watching this film, I want to watch his filmography. Like I'm so, and he's one of those cool guys that got into film later in life,
Yeah.
like in his 30s, and so
that's
it's
true,
kind of fun
'cause
to
I don't know if
you know,
I've
have that and like and
ever
it-
seen super young Brendan Gleeson, right? You know, I don't think I've ever, you know.
No, right. Even the first thing he did, he was like 34, and I was watching a thing on YouTube about him, and like he just, I mean, he looks pretty much the same, but he's shaven and probably 20 pounds lighter because he's a big boy, but in the best way possible. He's got dad energy, hardcore, and so
Trying to think. What was the first? I mean, the
I
first
love that.
movie you saw him in was 28 Days Later, right?
of course, yeah.
Yeah.
That's that's what's so funny is like 20 Days Later is like one of my favorite performances by him, and right now
It's relevant.
in
It's very
this-
big.
in present 2025 time. If you're listening to this podcast in the future,
Hey, 20 Days Later will
28 years
always
later is
be
amazing.
relevant.
And so, right. I mean, true. Yeah, 20 Days Later fucking rocks, and so I love that film. But the movie, 28 Weeks came out. Brendan Gleeson's corpse is not in it, unfortunately, which I was really hoping that they just bring his like skinned corpse back or something.
No, it's just bones.
You gotta
These are the
have
bones
yeah,
of that guy we shot.
I know. Dang it, dude.
I know. Anyway.
But yeah, no, I know.
Yeah,
But he's a great actor. That's
a
and
good
you know
point.
what's funny? I can't really think of anything else that he's in except for like the other McDonough project.
yeah. The first thing I think of,
That's it.
I don't think of 28 Days Later first, but it's the first thing I saw him in. But the first thing I think of is In Bruges. He's Ken from In Bruges is the first thing I think of him. And then Mad Eye Moody from all the Harry Potter movies, which I don't think of him as, but when I try to, when I say Brendan Gleeson to like my wife and she's like, who? And I'm like, you probably know him from Harry Potter, I guess, you know? He's
yeah, when you talk to the plebes, out
plebes.
there, the commoners,
the
you have to
non.
be like,
Yeah, this is the cult of
he's your-
cinema
he's your
knowledge.
Harry Potter.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, right. But no, I think of what we connected as friends is 6-shooters.
Yeah.
Remember when we were like getting kind of watching Cashback
Yeah.
and being like when back in the day when like shorts became like full features
Shorts
and
were
stuff,
cool,
and it's
yeah.
like those. Yeah, like I mean, it's still kind of
They're kind of cool.
works like that, but I think the pipeline isn't really there as much
Yeah.
anymore. There used to be a lot of like short incentive to kind of show you the full fledged. But anyway, so 6-shooter, that's one that I remember him in
So
as well.
obviously, so today we're not talking about In Bruges or any of the other really good Martin
Well,
McDonough movies
we've done
starring.
that. We've done that laugh out loud.
Oh, yeah.
we did that laugh out loud comedy.
Oh,
Go
yeah.
listen to that podcast.
I forgot, for laugh
We've already
out-
talked about In Bruges. We've already gushed about how much we love.
When we do, this
even
is
funnier.
this is laugh out loud.
Yeah.
So no, we're this. Obviously, you saw the thing. We're doing religious movie month, which is probably just going to mean Christianity or something,
Yeah,
probably because
which
most
is this which is this kind of movie because we're not going to watch. I don't know what else to watch. Passion,
the
but
propaganda like
Hacksaw Ridge.
God's not dead or something. Nah. Anyway, but so we watched Calvary, which I was pretty stoked won. Even though I voted for, did you vote for the 10 Commandments? I voted for the 10 Commandments, and I told my wife to go vote, and she's like, "What do you want me to vote for?" I'm like, "Vote for whatever one you'll watch the most." And she's like, "Ew, what's this movie from like the 50s?" I'm like, "That one looks cool. What are you talking about?"
That was the one because the
Charlton
Ten
Heston.
Commandments is like that one's like 4 hours long, right? It's a big. It's a.
I don't know. I've never seen
isn't
it.
it
I've never seen it. I know
yeah,
Cecil B.
whatever,
DeMille
Swords
and
and
like
Sandals.
Charlton Heston.
Kinda
Yeah,
epic.
I'm into it. Anyway, but I'm glad this one because this one I remember seeing the poster for and like it showing up occasionally, and I had known that it was Martin McDonough adjacent, and it was like his
Yeah, right. Basically, baby McDonough.
I remember Reddit. I called it Martin McDonough Light for sure.
yeah.
And it has Brendan Gleeson in it, so it's like obviously we're gonna constantly. I'm gonna try not to compare it too much, but we're going to constantly compare it to the films of Martin McDonough because it very much sits in that category. You know,
Yeah,
a
and
dark.
they worked together on this.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things where it's like he, John McDonough got the credit for this clearly, but
Sure.
it's like he put the effort into it, and he worked with Brendan Gleeson earlier on The Guard, and so it's like,
Right, which has also been kind of casually on my list, but because of this movie, it's shot higher on my list. I want to watch The Guard now. I heard it's good.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. Yeah.
Anyway, I did not. I was totally going to write. I was totally going to write a synopsis, and I 100% forgot. So Pablo, if you're listening, I'm sorry you didn't watch the movie, so you read the fucking synopsis. But so this movie follows Father James, right? Calvary. Father James. He is a priest in a small Irish town, with a whole bunch of it's all about the town and the cast of characters in the town and. It starts with him taking a confession from a guy that we don't, as the audience, don't see. And he says that he was, sexually abused by a Catholic priest when he was young. And that he's going to kill, Brendan Gleeson's character, Father James. He's going to kill him in a week, because he's a good priest. He's a good man. And he's like, he wants to have some retribution in that kind of way or whatever. And so the whole movie is just like throughout the week, he is meeting people. His daughter comes back to visit him, and his adult daughter comes to visit him, and she is like just recovering from a suicide attempt. And so she's there for a while and trying to he's getting some solace from her, but he's doing that thing that priests do where he's going around the town and just as the priest from The Wire said, is a good church man is all up in everyone's shit. And that's what he is. He's going around. He's messing with the interpersonal drama of everyone, but everyone just keeps kind of treating him like shit. Like they have a certain respect for him as a dude, but everyone just kind of is very disrespectful and dismissive. And then you got the fucking not McFadden, what's his name? Not him, but Rich,
I know,
the rich douchebag. Right. It's it seems like everyone has their sin too. It's there's the lust, love triangle, and then you got him with all his greed. And he's trying to kind of help these people while also coming to terms with the church and his own mortality and deciding, what if he's going to do anything about this threat, because he knows who it is, but we as the audience don't know who it is. He says he knows the person, and, at least he thinks he does. And as it goes on, he meets Littlefinger's a fucking atheistic, wisecracking, or Carcetti, if you rather, from The Wire, doctor that's morbid. And so you kind of seen all these conversations from these different walks of life, and he doesn't like what he sees. Everything's very kind of pessimistic and bleak, and kind of has a bad, nobody has a good outlook on each other. Everyone's kind of a bad person. He eventually is gonna leave it all and just say fuck it and get out of town, but he decides to go back and face the music when he sees some dudes just, I don't know what sets it off, but some dudes are leaning on the coffin of that woman's husband who died. But,
right.
And I think for me, it was he can't, he doesn't want to live in this world anymore because people just have no, as he says to the one priest, he says, you have the worst thing I can say about a person. He's like, I don't hate you, but the worst thing I can say about a person is you have no integrity. You know what I mean? And so I feel like he's that. So he goes back to the beach and he's, said that the dude is I'll kill, I'll meet you down at the beach and then I'll kill you on Sunday. And then so he does, he shows up. And spoiler, Chris O'Doyle shows up, he's in the movie as, occasionally he's the cuck husband, I guess, if you will. And he shows up and he goes on a pretty good acting, and he should be in more dramatic stuff.
Oh, dude, it was
rant.
amazing.
Yeah, he goes on his rant about like his like retribution, like his thing with the church, and like how it's like, you know, he asked him if he cried when his dog got killed because people are still fucking him, and he's like, yeah, and then he's like, did you cry when you read about all those boys that your friends like molested? He's like, no, I didn't. He's like, yeah, that's what I thought. So he executes him on the beach, right? And everyone kind of goes about their life still having kind of expected, it seems, and then it ends with his daughter coming back and talking to him in prison. You don't hear what they say, but, you know, she meets with him in prison, and it's a shed moment. It's very much about, we'll get into the themes and stuff, but it's very much like the only thing worth anything is forgiveness, is kind of what I took away from it, which is especially from that ending. So, but yeah, brains blown out, intertown drama.
I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it was good.
I saw this in theaters. And
Shut up! No, you didn't. You fuck you.
This with Chet.
Okay,
No,
David.
dude.
David, are you listening right now, Mr. Jordan? I watched it in fucking theaters. My dick and balls.
If I didn't watch it in theaters, I watched it with Chet at one point.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure because we were into Brendan Gleeson like this.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it was that time.
It was and it was that time, and it was one of those movies where like the trailer's epic, and I thought it was going to be a lot more intense, and I remember watching it now. As I'm watching it, I'm like, God, I don't remember this movie at all. But like, I remember some of the bits. There were some things that stood out. I loved the kid and his paintings; those were awesome.
Yeah,
doing those like plein air paintings, and like, and then I loved like the bar stuff. Every time they're in the bar, it's very crass. And this is kind of one of those movies that I remember the dog dying too. God, that was brutal. You know, once again, yeah, the dog. I love that line too when he's like, you know, did you cry when your dog died? And then he's like, did you cry when all the allegations came out? And he's like, no. And he's like,
I guess I was just desensitized. Yeah.
He said disassociated.
Yeah.
You know, from it, because that's kind of a main theme too. Is like, that's
what the other guy says. And when the rich guy was saying that he was
Yeah.
feeling disassociated from everything lately too. Yeah.
Well, of course. And that's what, but he says this earlier. Brendan Gleeson's character
does,
at
yeah.
the beginning is talking to the priest, and he's like, you have to disassociate when you're taking confessions, you know?
Yeah.
Because they talk about that. And so we can go back to the beginning, our first impressions, because watching this again for me, it felt, I knew what was coming, and I remember the church burning scene was amazing. And so like, I knew stuff was coming, and on this watch, I really, really got to enjoy, and I'm more mature.
Burn the church.
You know,
Burn the church.
Able to, Well, I still, I mean, I'm clearly like down for the church burning, but I was like, I really loved the complexity of all the characters.
Yeah,
and it was cool to see like there's like this. He is a good. That's what's so nice is like Brendan Gleeson's character, like. He is good. That's just period. Like he has gray areas, and there's like, you know, he might have had a past.
He's very very decent
good.
Man in the way that
And
you
like,
would say like of someone's moral character, right? Like not like, oh, that's decent, but it's like no, he is a decent. And as he says, the worst thing like that, because that's not good. He's like, the worst thing I could say about someone is you have no integrity, and it's like that's him through and through. At least, you know what I mean? He's a flawed character. He's a great character, but he definitely is like has a strong moral compass that he sticks to his values, whether or not that has to do with the church or not. He just believes in doing right. Yeah. You know what I mean? Which obviously he's a priest. Which for being a priest, he talks more about just being kind and like listens to people and stuff like that. He's surprisingly, I mean, he's judgy, but he's not like surprisingly not super preachy, which is weird. To be honest, but
I know I actually was. I did kind of notice that too. I was like, in a positive light. I was like, really
happy
that he didn't.
I'm glad
it
could have went.
That's kind of the thing too. Is like these like where it comes down to it. Like this isn't. I just like Banshees of Inisherin. I kind of feel like it's like Catholicism is just so ingrained.
Yeah.
in Irish culture. Period. That like, it was cool to see this movie because this movie is present day where in Banshees, spoiler alert, is like set in the 20s or something, right?
Yeah, it's like the 20s, I'm
kind
pretty
of
sure.
a semi, and it's kind of like, it's that history adjacent, kind of like set in the 20s, but it's got like, it's like based on like real things happening, but it's all super fictitious, where this is very similar to that, where it's all like, none of these characters are real, and there's not really a large theme happening in it. It's just kind of like it is, like you said, interpersonal. It's just conversations and him going through. But what's cool, what I just learned watching this, is that Calvary is like the last 7 days of Jesus before he was crucified, and that's like, I didn't really know the biblical term. I only knew like the military term.
Yeah, I was like,
Calvary,
that's what I was thinking too. Yeah.
And so I had that context the whole time where I was kind of like, oh, what's the theme with like military? You know, what is that?
Or like to the rescue, right? The Calvary
like,
is like
right. They're like, it's deployed, and so it's kind of like, oh, that's curious. But then knowing the other term for it, the biblical term, I was like, oh, that's a cool like thematic anchor too.
That,
also,
yeah,
just for how
that makes sense.
The structure of it, the 7 days and everything.
Yeah,
I don't know. I loved the pacing of.
Well, that's what I really liked is the because as it went along, it's like you definitely felt like, yeah, like the ticking clock down to the 7 days, and it felt thematic in its way. And like the people in the town, to me, like I was trying to figure out because they all seemed like hyper, like not quite realistic, but it's like that heightened movie level of shit. But it's like, and so I was like almost like feeling like they represented like different sins and stuff like this. Like almost, that's kind of what I was feeling. I don't know if I landed on that exactly, but like everyone having all these like actual for real problems and never being like truly vulnerable with him very often. Like they just like look down on him so much, but it's as it goes along, it's more of his general association with the church. Like nobody can give a fuck that the church burned down. It could have been anyone. And at the end, it even says he's not the one that killed his dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's there's just such a disdain for who he represents, which is obviously why the Jack character wants to kill him anyway. It's not like even personal, really. It's just that he represents the church and like this kind of like apathy towards what's going on in the world, right? And especially like abuse and everything like that. And it's just like,
well, I on that front with Jack's character taking revenge, if you will, or just taking out his frustrations on Brendan Gleeson's character, it really highlights his doubt. That was something that was kind of interesting, like because what's fun is like all the main players, like the bartender and the Simon, the black guy, the one token character, he's not, I mean, he doesn't fully say his whatever, religious identity, but he's definitely not Catholic, and the doctor's atheist, and the bartender's Buddhist, and that was,
right.
I don't know if Buddhist is kind of like a joke, if you will. Like I love how there's like, can Buddhists be violent? That? So it's like, but he has Buddhism, where Jack is like, he's really the only Catholic one there. And even like Dylan Moran's character, he's not Christian either. They're not.
But they all go to church, though. You know what I mean? See, that's the thing. It's like at the beginning,
right.
they're all
that's the cultural. But I think that's the cultural thing that's fun about it.
Yeah,
is that they do go to church.
Like they're all taking the communion at the beginning.
The community, yeah. Right, of course. No,
but it is.
But it's like it's great that's
because
that's what they do.
That's the only good thing about religion is that it's like a cultural community thing. That's like the only good thing about religion. But as we can see from this movie, that doesn't even work out really. There's the ones that are there, like especially like the woman, I forget her name, but the one who's just like having the affair and it's like out in the open and everything like that, and this, they're just going through the motions, like you know what I mean?
Who
like
is Jack's wife?
Yeah,
and that's what's great too is like. Jack kind of he's got that like incel energy where it's like in the fact that like, not to downplay that if he really was truly abused, that really does, like, that is something where I'm like, that's the only thing about this movie I kind of wish they touched a little bit more on.
No, dude,
him, but I think it's great. This movie to me is like a 4.5-star film, honestly.
Interesting.
With the characters.
They
like 4 stars easy.
They went way into the incel energy with that other fucking guy who was like, women won't fuck me, so I'm going to join the army to kill someone. He's the incel.
Because he's right. That character really could have been written out of the whole movie.
It's true.
Like he's funny. He's the true darkest comedy of it. And like he does play an important part in the movie, kind of like giving flavor to the town. But I totally forgot about him.
Well, it makes a good point about like kind of the incel ideology where it's just like, and the military. He's like, I don't think anyone should join the military because thou shalt not kill. But he's like, well, if I want to kill someone, if anything, that makes me more qualified. So maybe they'll look past my other faults and stuff. Which it's like it's saying interesting stuff, and I guess that kind of brings to what I think some of the flaws of this movie are. Is it's like it's saying interesting stuff, but it's just like all the stuff with that character are not really cohesive with like the rest of the package. Like it is a very good stuff on its own, but it's like, you could have cut him out and kind of folded in those things. It felt like that John McDonough, right, or whatever, wanted to have that conversation, and so it's like in there. You know what I mean? Just to kind of experience all angles. But I guess that's kind of part of it. I don't know. It's like, Father James is experiencing like the troubles of different people that he has to deal with, and it's more about how he receives it, I guess. So I mean, it's fine, but it's about how he's he's kind of losing faith. But then, he realizes that forgiveness is the only thing.
And I think that's what's cool though too, is like him coming into the church on his own free will, basically. Like, he essentially had a life before, and so he like experienced, things that are of the what do you call it, like the secular world or whatever. And so it's like he has a daughter, and like, so it's like he truly chose it, even if he had like doubts per se. It's like he just kind of, I don't know, I think he has like ebbs, like just lower moments. But then I do like that the woman who lost her husband, who they got in like the car accident, and so he goes to read the last rites to her husband, and then they only have like 2 scenes together, the one in the church when she kind of like they really discuss faith. That's kind of an interesting,
right. Well, and she's like one of the only outsiders he talks to. Like he talks to a couple, but she's like not from there. And so
right, yeah. And so that's an interesting perspective too, because then they meet at the airport, which to me that's like one of the most like poignant scenes for that, like that for him coming back and doing that. Like it's such a good, well constructed scene where it shows and does not tell. It is him coming, and they have a quick conversation, and like him lining up to go, and then like them leaning on the coffin and just his facial expressions. It's like, I'm like, oh wow, that's really cool. It's like, it's cool because you're like, he's not gonna leave, because it's like,
well, it's almost like
life is finite, and
people are awful, but
so much.
They're like, I feel like it's not even about his faith with like, it's definitely not about his faith with his God, but it's his faith in humanity, and it's like, are people worth saving? Right. You know what I mean? And it's just like, and the whole time he's like, man, maybe they're not, but then it's just like, maybe I can offer something to someone with his sacrifice, like almost like when he decides his fate, goes back, and it's like, maybe this person can have some sort of thing. But it's like I feel like he comes back off that a little bit when I forget the dude's name, but the rich guy, because when he's actually open and vulnerable to him about it for a second, he's like, no, if this doesn't go through, it's like, we'll meet later, we'll talk later, because it's like, obviously you're hurting, and he feels it, even though it's like he probably likes him the least, but he's like more aware of his, like, that's like the character he probably hates the most, other than the ones like killed his dog and everything. But like, it's like that guy, he obviously has a disdain for his greed and his fucking, everything, that he only cares about how expensive everything is and his pride and everything. But when he sees like the actual, this is a man, is a human with his vulnerability, and that's worth it. It's like, if he needs me, that's why I probably became a man of the cloth in the first place, is when one person needs me. If I can make an impact in one person's life, you know what I mean? And then, the last conversation he has with his daughter is very on the nose, where she's like, I forgive you,
I know, right. Yeah, forgiveness. I know, yeah. Yeah, that's and those themes for me, the heavy-handedness.
That's a huge thing. Well, because I was thinking it should have ended. Should have ended with the gunshot, but then it worked out with like, she goes to visit, Chris O'Doyle in prison, and it's just like, oh, that's a moment where it's just like, I should hate you. I mean, you killed my dad in cold blood, but it's just like, forgiveness is the first step. Because
and forgiveness, yes.
That's often lost in the message of religion. Like, a lot of people say it, but I don't know anyone that preaches that shit. Like, I don't know anyone that's literally like,
not at all.
Forgiveness. It's rare. Like,
No.
You see like a dad. I always think about the dad. Like I think forgiveness is a virtue, because it's like you see that dad that forgive the murderer, like BTK, I think it was. It's like BTK, like he was stone faced the whole trial, but then the one guy came up and was like, Jesus tells me forgive, and you killed my daughter or whatever, but it's just like you are a human too, and I forgive you. And it's like that's the only moment that got him to crack. Like BTK was so soulless the whole time, but like that got him to crack a little bit. But I think about that sometimes, and watching this, and I'm just like, oh yeah, because you don't see it. You hear people talk it, but you never see people fucking walk the walk. You know what I mean? Especially religious folk, right?
Right. Exactly.
But,
Yeah. Because forgiving, I think in that realm turns into just begrudging, and that's an interesting whole thing.
And
if you download my favorite app, Halo, we could go through and we can do some. I'm converted, dude. I'm
forgiveness.
I'm on the Catholic train.
Yeah, and
forgiveness rules.
And if they do forgive, it's always to just look how good I am. Look how good I am for forgiving. You know what I mean? I'm so pious. Let me into the kingdom of heaven. Yeah. I got some things to say about religion.
Oh yeah, let me. Dude, I love that so much. They have those conversations in this all the time where they're like that one. I can't remember what it was like. Yeah, whatever. You can do all this heinous shit and then just forgive yourself. It's like it's very well written. But I wanted to say something real quick before I lose the thread about the ending of this film. It is because John McDonough. I was watching a little vignette thing on him, and he was talking about this movie goes through the stages of grief, and that's a really it's getting to the beginning is death because he's told you're going to die, and so now he has to go through the grief of himself dying. And it's cool because the ending is forgiveness, and that's
he's in denial, and then he goes
and anger.
Oh, yeah, it's and then he's got a bargaining, and then
he goes to bargaining. It's cool. It's cool because it's the themes are woven in really well, and I think that's what's getting more context of knowing what John McDonough was doing with this, and the writing is it's I don't know, it's solid because it is very vignette-y. It's weird how it's but I think it works perfect because he's a father or whatever it is. He's a priest that is that does quote unquote house calls. People in the church kind of expect him to show up just to talk, just to kind of see what the going-ons are. I don't really know.
I feel like when you're a small town priest, I feel like a small town priest, that is what you would do. You know what I mean? But again, I learned it all from movies, and it's always about priests. First Reformed, it's the priest who's trying to help people. He's actually just has a fucking, suicide vest. So
I know. So if we don't, dude. Oh wait, we've already watched First Reformed.
We did.
Go listen.
Let's watch it again though, because goddamn,
I would love to watch it again. That movie's so good.
So good.
But yeah.
Anyway, this movie. While we're getting into it, I would be remiss. So it's I did not like it nearly as much as you. I actually was a bit disappointed, but that's not that I didn't really like it. I did really enjoy it because the writing. Very, very solid. Kind of choppy, I guess, but I think that's the overall you know what I mean? I feel like it's one of almost where in movies where it's you carry one conversation across multiple scenes. It's montage, Christopher Nolan style. It almost feels a little bit fucking John McDonough is writing all these things, but like you say, a little vignette, which is fine. I have no problem with that. But it is really well written, and then obviously Brendan Gleeson is good, and everyone else is pretty good. But I feel, and it's I'm not an expert or anything, but I feel when I watch a movie, I can tell when the directing is subpar because everything just feels it has a blanket over it where it could pop. There's not. The acting doesn't really ever fucking go off. The actual framing and everything, the wide shots and stuff look beautiful, but everything feels just above mediocre, but not much for me. A lot of the actual, especially, I really like the editing early on, but then it never had room to breathe. There's no score to speak of to have I think I probably would have liked this more if I wasn't.
I don't know. I think there's
Nah, no way, dude.
there
There's
are,
like 2 scenes, maybe.
Well, that's the thing. I guess that's
And even then, it's not even
really,
like the
they're
impactful
really
scenes.
punchy and impactful.
But think, the whole time I was thinking, and this isn't fair. I know this isn't fair, but I was comparing it because it is so like the Irishness of it and the fucking like dark, very extremely dark like themes and like atmosphere and subject matter, but with like very witty dialogue. That is Martin McDonagh all the way. Martin McDonagh is like one of my favorite writer directors. I fucking like. We both love Martin McDonagh, and so it is hard not to make those comparisons when it's literally his brother. It feels like he's emulating that style and just not doing it as good. Like it's just doesn't flow as good. It's just think about the music in Bruges when they're like walking through the city. It's just so distinctive, and it's like there's just a little bit more in those movies of a creative voice, where in these movies there's a very strong writer's voice, but I feel like as an actual like the getting it on the screen, it's kind of going through the motions in a lot of aspects. Like it's like I don't know. Like just for me, like I think it's like it's fine. It's fine. Like
I think on your rewatch you'll
I don't know.
There'll be more that you appreciate. I mean, I don't know. I like because I think there.
Well, I really
are
the writing.
very,
You know,
like,
that's me, dude. Like writing is fucking king.
Right.
If you got
but
a shit script and everything else sucks, or I mean, if you got a shit script and everything else is great, like Prometheus is always the go-to, where it's like the script is shit, but everything about the production and everything is awesome. You still got a shit movie, but on the other hand, if you have a great script with like a kind of a terrible production, you could still have a good movie. And this is by no means a terrible production at all. This is definitely above average in as far as like the way it was filmed. And we'll get to Money Minute, but it's just like it felt cheaper sometimes too. And so I know I was I was holding it to a higher standard because it felt so much like it was trying to be. It'd be like if Quentin Tarantino's brother came along and was like, "Yeah, I'm a Tarantino too." And then he made a movie that was like very much wishes it was Tarantino, but like just never quite nails it. But it's still pretty good. That's what this feels like to me. You know what I mean? But it's just like, yeah, it's hard to compare to Martin McDonagh. He does what he does the best.
Well, that's the thing.
But when you're his brother doing what he does, also, like it is the same thing, just not as good.
I wanted to bring that up. Why didn't they pull a Coen Brothers style light out of this?
Yeah.
Like, it's such a weird. It was like so weird to find out like they're like mismatched on their years and stuff too. So I wonder if they're kind of like helping each other write and stuff, because it's like this literally does feel like if you were like, oh, this was by Martin McDonagh, I'd be like, oh, okay, and like kind of weird. It's like it feels like an imitation, but the fact that it's like his brother is it's such a weird, and it's weird to get like
it's well done. It's a well done imitation, but it's still, it's Shasta Cola instead of Coca-Cola. You know what I mean? Like, which is still good, I guess.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's still dude. Shasta goes down easy, but this film has a lot more dynamic to it that I think.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, I know I'm trying to think. It's kind of got like the Manchester by the Sea vibe to it, where it is very plain.
Well,
and like I think it's the color grading is weird on it too. Honestly, I don't know why he decided to go so like kind of grayish.
It's a little too digital.
Living those. Yeah, living those. And it was, it definitely has. And I think that might just be.
Well, it's like
we'll talk about. And then,
every interior was like so basic.
So.
The exteriors were good, but it's hard, like with Westerns, it's hard to make exteriors look bad when you're shooting in Ireland, because Ireland's fucking beautiful.
I know you're
shooting. You know what I mean?
When you shoot somewhere cinematic, it is hard to like.
But it's like every time they're in like just inside the fucking dude's house, you know what I mean? Or they're in the bar, like it's just like, we're just setting up a camera and let's shoot the 2-shot and shoot the close up and just like cut it together and we'll just. It does, and it doesn't breathe. The pacing.
This is his second film, so like I feel like there might be growing pains. I'm curious to see if his other 2 films have grown, because even with Martin McDonagh, there is an argument to say he's grown a lot. Like 3 Billboards feels more cinematic. It looks better than in Bruges.
Oh, sure.
I mean, I think they both have. They're both all of Martin McDonagh's films are they're flawless. They're they're great.
Yeah,
and
they're
so
great.
we do love those. And so it's like to see him grow is kind of interesting. And so curious why this guy
I really
John McDonough just
that's the thing. I really like it, and I think he's a very strong writer and a totally competent director. So I'm not talking shit. It's just when you compare the two together, but also I want him. I don't know what the last movie he's done. I don't know. I think he's done a couple things recently that I'd like to see because
2021.
I want to see him kind of experiment with a little that's not going to be so similar, and it probably doesn't help his case that it also stars Brendan Gleeson, which Brendan Gleeson is in half of Martin McDonough's movies. You know what I mean? And is
well, and he's in half of John McDonough's movies too.
They're all.
He was in,
I'm sure they're all friends, right? Because in The Guard, which I really want to watch, The Guard. I remember hearing good things about that too. So I don't want to say I'm not talking shit on this movie.
Oh, yeah.
I would be remiss if I didn't say my slight shortcomings. But this is a 3.5 star for me. You know what I mean? If it was a letter, 3.5 star probably. But it would be one that maybe in my memory because it's as just the characters, when you look at it from a very straightforward, very literal movie where it's just a dude going through the plot and talking with characters, and you're not oh, this represents the fucking final days of Christ, and it's an allegory for forgiveness and grief. When you don't include any of that stuff, it is still a very competent human drama, which is dope.
And that was their whole thing, is they were he doesn't even have to be a priest. That was the the thing where he's like, I just said it with that, thematically for himself, his personal, just history and, whatever his connection there. But he's like, I didn't want to make it, that the focal point, even though there's a lot about that, but it was more just faith base and just kind of and that was kind of interesting for him to be this could be any kind of character that's just going through and contemplating death, having to see.
Well, and it's so much his role to want to help people but not interfere too much. So he's always skating that line. So it's one of my favorite parts because I feel no one could take him that seriously because it's how their own personal opinions on the church, but also I feel they just don't respect him fully, and he kind of rolls over on a lot of stuff. But near the end when he comes back and he's decide to accept his fate. And he talks with the dad from House of a Thousand Corpses, that old guy that's trying to kill himself too, which is a lot of suicide themes, right?
The old writer.
But when he's oh, how's the book going? And he's oh, it's okay. I don't know if it's gonna be good. He's I'm sure it's gonna be excellent, dude. You're such a good writer. And the guy literally, I feel that's one of the few times in the movie that feels he's oh, thank you, James. He calls him James, and instead of father, and that's one of the only times in the movie where it's because everyone calls him father because that's his association. Everyone is he's brought down because guilty by association. I mean, it's the same thing with cops, right? You know what I mean? You see, and priests, you could be a good dude, but if you're a priest that stands idly by,
I'm not quite like the dad. I'm not taking my daughter away from you quickly. But I'm apprehensive. I definitely am. If I see I'm just gonna you don't have a great history, guys.
Statistically, I'm gonna think slightly less of you, and that's just my personal thing. Even if you're a great person in your own life, and so to see that moment when he calls him by his first name, and they have a genuine person-to-person human interaction that is separated from the fact that he is part of the church, and he is the only person that calls him James, other than the other priests, one other time. That was one of my favorite parts because I was that feels real. You know what I mean? I don't know. Something about that felt really good for his character and
well, and I think it's because everyone calls him priest and it's sarcastic. And
hey, you priest,
this
too. That's very sarcastic.
It's so good.
I think that's kind of Irish too. I feel Irish movies.
Yes,
they got that bite.
Oh man, he says that in there when they're talking and they're oh, I'm never taking the piss or whatever. They He's just like you. He's like, oh, you're making fun of me. You didn't come here to actually have a conversation.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I don't think a single conversation in this until his sincere conversation, he kind of breaks character and calls him James. Like, I don't think that everyone kind of there's a tit for tat in all of them, and that was like a conversation. That was
It is. They're like
very, very
they're
genuine.
pushing,
and when he talks with the woman too.
Oh, sure.
It's
because she doesn't really
a plain dryness. To
yes.
it.
Yes.
Like,
it's very
yeah.
the societal, like he is technically an authority figure within like a certain thing, and so
Right.
it comes
Exactly,
from a
exactly.
place
And
of that. But everyone else that knows him in his town sort of just disrespects him, except for when they need him. And I think that's why at the end when he comes back, he's just like, even if they hate me, they sometimes, if someone needs me, I don't know. It's good.
Right. It's
good.
kind of the burden. It is the
He's
pun intended cross he bears.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah, for
the-
sure.
he's-
Yeah, literally.
He's kind of like the whatever, like the whipping boy of the town.
Can
for
we-
people's kind of grievance, and it's great. Yeah.
Can we talk briefly about because like obviously all the dialogue in the movie was pretty good, but the opening where I was just like, because Mary was sitting with me too, and it just like the opening lines, and you're just like, God damn, that's a way to open a movie though.
It's so good, yeah.
And I obviously love that because by then I was just like, okay, that's a hook, man, right out the gate.
Yeah.
Too.
Right.
And I like how you he knows who it is, but you don't know who it is, and you're kind of trying to see, because everyone does kind of interact with him in a way that potentially is kind of threatening too. That's the thing. It's like, even though everyone's sarcastic and disrespectful, many of the characters have an undertone of, potential violence. And so it's just like, because of the Chekhovs, like the promise of violence at the beginning of the movie, and from like the unknown source to us as the audience, it's like the whole time it's like almost like you're reading even more sinister into some of the people. And maybe it's just because I don't even know the dude's name, but Littlefinger and Carcetti, it's like everything he says is just like, I feel like I'm like, oh, he's the murderer, he's gonna do it. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I knew he wasn't, but I'm
There
just
is-
like, everyone has a vibe. Like it almost is like a murder mystery,
disdain.
like Agatha Christie almost vibe, where it's just like, who's the killer?
yeah.
Especially when he's like having dreams and it's like all the different, like vaguely everyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. He doesn't know who could be, and all the guns. I love that shot. That's great. But I think that something funny and like what John McDonough was doing, he brought in like comedians. They're all like everyone in this, like the big main players, they're like comedians first. Like even the the bar guy, like whatever his name is, I can't remember, but that actor, he's like a huge stand-up comedian in Ireland. And it's like, so it's like, even like whatever that Littlefinger's character, Aidan Gillian, like he does a little comedy, and then clearly like Dylan Moran and Chris O'Dowd. It's like, it's awesome. He wanted to bring
Chris O'Dowd. I'm always surprised to see him in anything else. I'm like, hey, I like that guy. he's always good though.
I love him so much, and like I actually forgot that it was him until like at the beginning, and stuff like. And it's funny because the voice actor who did his voice in the confessional at the beginning, it's not him. So, because
right?
Some, vagueness to it.
He's just like, I'm disabled.
But
but
yeah, right. I know, right? That's acid. But it's like I remember when he was in the butcher shop is when I remembered like that it was him. Because I was like, oh, and it's one of those things where I'm like, damn, it's so good because you really don't know who it's gonna be. Like,
you don't.
I like, the whole time you're
I was,
and but that's what I love too, is that that's one of the big themes that I love about this movie, is that Brendan Gleeson's character he knows who it is, like definitively.
Yeah.
But he's like, I'm gonna like treat everyone like I normally do, not to like give them suspicion maybe, or not. I don't even know. It's like, he's just like, this is like the vow that I've taken. And so that was an interesting
well, I
part
think
that I didn't quite. Maybe on my third watch, I'll like kind of.
I think if I ever, because I think if I ever go back and watch this, I think it will be interesting, because it's like when he goes in to talk to Jack at the butcher shop, and it's like, oh, what do you hear about? Like, he's kind of nervous already, but you think it's because it's like he's hitting his wife and all that. Right. And so, but like now knowing that he's like the one who did it, and it's like seeing their interaction, it's like they both know, but it's like we as the audience, the first time around, obviously do not know that they both know that like he threatened to kill him, and he has like such this horrible abusive past. You know what I mean? That I feel like that dynamic would make really interesting on a rewatch because it's good, and I wish Crystal Dad was in more stuff, man, because it's like. I remember when he was in like Bridesmaids, which was like now like 10 years ago or whatever. But he was like the romantic opposite in Bridesmaids, like one of the main ones. And I was like, oh yeah, like he's going to be big now. Like this is a big popular movie and he's like the guy, like, you know? And then I don't know, he just never is. Like it's too bad because he just shows up in random stuff and I'm like, oh yeah, I love him. But
he might be doing some British stuff, you know?
Who knows? Maybe he's just out there doing Martin McDonagh's plays. You know what I mean? So,
oh yeah, right.
Because that's what I need. I just want to go see one of his plays because obviously I love his movies and his writing so much, but I've never read one of his plays, but I really want to. I was gonna buy one and read it. So anyway,
that's something to look into.
So how much did this movie cost to make? Because that was something I was wondering.
I have a little caveat to that. I don't know. I couldn't find a solid budget.
You couldn't convert leprechaun gold into dollars?
Like, yeah, right. Yeah, just bars of Irish Spring. I like so I don't know what their currency is over there. They're like, there's some weird island. Potatoes, I guess, right? That's the joke.
Yeah.
So what I did is I did a little like secret math here. The Guard was $6 million.
All math to you, secret, bud.
Typically, a sequel will be like 3 times as much.
Okay.
You know, and so I'm assuming it's like anywhere 16 to 20 million. That's my guess. Even though that feels like a little too much.
Yeah, it feels high.
I would probably I'd put it from anywhere from like 12 to 20 million.
I would think I think like 10 to 15.
For the cast of characters,
10 to 15.
You know,
10 to 15.
And it's a sequel. Right. And it was it went through the film lottery and stuff. It was like a whatever they call that, like the film preservation. Like it's actually made as art instead of like a personal finance.
Right.
Completely.
When other countries appreciate their artists, which is nice.
I know they do. Yeah,
surprising.
Of course. And so it went through that. So that's my safe bet, anywhere from like 6 to 20. Which is pretty. That's a large. I know that's a large.
Yeah, I'm betting.
Like, if we just even do,
how much did it
if we
make?
even do double, that's 12. Well, that's
12.
The funny
I would
thing
see
is
10 to 15.
Sold.
My guess,
yeah, 10 to 15 sounds great. So, but it had a run in Ireland, and then it went through Sundance, and it went through, was it Cannes or something? I can't remember. It went through something else. But it sold at Sundance for $2.5 million.
Okay.
Which is pretty nice for them. And then its theatrical run, it made 16.9.
Oh, it's not bad.
So
for,
it's okay.
For a movie that's like 95% just dialogue, like, and is not like
and
super
like,
massive of a thing too. Like,
and it's drama too. There's not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got like a really strong hook with the I'm gonna kill this priest in 7 days. So it like
it's like a little bit of a thriller, and it's got the witty. It's witty, which is which is nice.
But it's
sometimes jarring, but
like you needed the whole reason this movie didn't sell as well, in my opinion, is there wasn't a buddy aspect to it. Where Martin McDonagh, 100% of his movies are buddy films. And so
there's always a dynamic. There's
really
always like
There's always two characters that are like friends, but then they're just witty banter between them. It's like that is like so that's I feel like that's where he really sells himself. Where John McDonagh does a lot of singular.
The studio should have got involved in it. Like, what if the dog talks? You know, like
oh my god. Dude, that'd be amazing.
It's probably a studio
note.
Good. You know, good thing it's like, the government giving them money or whatever.
The daughter should be a hot bimbo who comes over and wants to like.
What do you mean?
Trying to get him out of the.
What do you mean? Should have been?
No, okay. No, don't get me wrong. No, don't get me wrong. She came in, dude. She was. I could fix her, dude. She like. She was good, dude. I loved her character. We didn't really even get to talk about her much.
Yeah, she's fun.
I thought, like, I loved how witty. It's just witty. Everyone's so like witty, but so sad. I want to go so bad. It looks.
I do too.
It looks just so sad and so old, man. Everything's so old there. I love all the old rocks.
Yeah, rocks.
Remember he was talking about the big old rock?
Rocks. Yeah, the rocks are generally pretty old. Anyway, I got a couple Reddits for you. So, Clones of People 2 says, really glad an Irish film got selected. My second watch of this, I saw it when it first came out. I didn't really remember too much of it apart from the vague plot. There's a lot of characters and a lot of conversations. The film has a lot of absurdity to it, along with some very serious conversation and reflection on the role and attitudes to the church in Ireland. Over the last 30 years, the Catholic Church has gone from being the pillar of the community to being treated with detest and apathy due to scandal and being, in general, awful. The plot and character arc for Father James is a loose allegory for the Holy Week / Easter story, with him being tested and coming to terms with his upcoming death. I feel like he's making a sacrifice for the sins of the church, not absolving them. Yeah, that's good. He says,
that's cool.
I really like the writing. It's very funny. I don't know how well it translates, but dry wit, irony, and tragicomedy is often found in Irish literature, and this comes across here. It helps that a lot of the supporting cast are comedians turned actors who give a lot of quirky performances. My main problem points are that I find this gets a bit messy at times, and a lot of the subtext is too on the nose. It also went very dark at times, and juxtaposition between the silliness fell off. Overall, I'm a fan of this. It's a good taste of Irish film. If you like this, I recommend The Guard in Bruges and Banshees of Inisherin. Yep. Thank you.
Dude, Banshees is like so high up on my list for just film in general.
I've only watched it the
Banshees
once
is
and I
like-
fucking loved it. So I need to watch it again. I don't know. I never watch movies again these days unless it's for the podcast.
I know, it's so
I need
hard.
to go.
It's so hard to rewatch a movie.
Do some rewatches. In my life.
I feel like true deep anxiety watching something over again because I'm just like I could be watching something else.
I know.
But thank you for your comment. Also,
Yeah,
Thank
and
you
I
for
appreciate the
a little
perspective
insight.
because fairly
Yeah,
sure
it's great.
he is from Ireland originally. So I do,
Right.
if I remember right, and so I appreciate that perspective. I do. I want to see. I feel like I want to see more Irish movies. I feel like I've seen a chunk, but now I'm looking because he suggests The Guard in Bruges and Banshees in Inisherin. It's only the McDonoughs. I'm like,
I know, right?
maybe
I know,
maybe
yeah.
that's
Does
all
anyone
I
else make?
maybe that's
Right,
all I know.
Is it like Lanthimos? There's only one.
There's one dude, yeah.
Director in the world.
That's the one guy. Anyway, so yeah, thanks, man. So I got a couple more. So competitive bat 5831 says, I've decided that Brendan Gleeson from Banshees is his character in this movie's reincarnation. Ignore the timelines. Having little knowledge about the role of the Catholic Church in Ireland, I found it interesting to see the characters give the father respect, as he's still a priest, but also many treat him with contempt for similarly the same reason. An early scene that stuck with me was after the confessional pre-confession of intent to kill the seemingly good / proper priest. He sits down with what I assume is a bishop. I couldn't help but notice how fancy everything around him felt on contrast with the town's church that we get to see. That's true when he goes and sees the higher up, like the, I don't know,
The higher up.
the bishop or the deacon or where the fuck it is.
Cardinal
and-
or something. What do they call?
Yeah,
I don't know,
sure.
they call it higher up.
Cardinal. Yeah, we watched. We watched Conclave.
Cardinal.
We watched Conclave. It's Cardinal probably.
Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah. The Mecca Cardinal.
But
The
it's like-
big one that they
yeah,
ride.
where it's like-
they get inside and they ride the bigger one.
They all into one pant leg.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And it is interesting to see because it's just like, I like to see, and it's part of the reason why we're doing Religious Month is because, I mean, Jordan and I have kind of generally strong anti-religious views, but it's interesting to see. So when someone
I dig
says,
faith though.
yeah, sure. Yeah.
You gotta have faith. You gotta have faith.
I'm there for that. Yeah, that's sure. But it's interesting because it's like to see someone's like, oh man, the Catholic Church sucks. I would be like, from my personal experience, be like, yeah, no duh. They always have sucked. What are you talking about? But and then it's like, obviously a lot of people turned. I mean, I've seen a lot of movies in history when it's just like in Spotlight, that based on true story, but like time period when those allegations were all coming out and stuff. So, and I think that was around the same time that it was happening here. So it's interesting to kind of see how it really specifically, like, really affected the people of Ireland and how they actually more turned, where it's like, I feel like a lot of people found ways to justify it almost. And a lot of other, like, I feel like a lot of other places where it's just like, those are some bad eggs. You can't let the bad eggs ruin the bunch, you know what I mean? Type of deal. That's always the excuse when, you know, there's so, I don't know, you know how it goes, but.
I mean, Doubt paints that beautifully.
Doubt does a good job.
How to navigate it, you know.
That was another reason why I wanted to do this kind of genre too. And like we said before, some of the best art in history comes from religion, you know, and
totally. Yeah.
Film probably included. But so I'm sure we'll watch some other movies that probably look more favorably at religion, but maybe not. We'll see. We'll see where we go.
Yeah, we'll see.
So
we got to watch Holy Mountain though, dude. If we don't watch Holy Mountain,
we are not. I'll put it on a poll. We'll see if it wins. The one that I need to watch for sure, that I'm gonna cheat. Just kidding, I won't cheat, but I won't. I'll try not to stack the poll either. But we need to see The Last Temptation of Christ, dude. Scorsese, Defoe, it's been on my list for so long.
For 100 years. I don't know why I haven't watched it.
Forever. Anyways, okay, I got one more. So I haven't read this one yet. So Avery5712 says, great movie with a hell of a cast. I love the reveal at the end of who was in Confessional. Brendan Gleeson is one of the best actors of our time. Fun story, the opening line where the person says, I first tasted semen at the age of 7 was crazy. What was crazier was when the screen went black. I thought that was how the movie started, and that was the hook. I literally applauded because it was the most insane opening I'd ever seen. I waited a few moments for the movie to come back thinking it was an artistic choice. Then I realized the stream had crashed, and I was just staring at a black screen. It's still one hell of a way to open your film. Also, as other commenter has noted, this movie does feel very similar to Banshees of Inisherin. Thank you for that comment. That's great. Because
that's great. No, that's a wonderful experience too. That's what kind of happened.
You're
to
just
me
like, goddamn.
So,
I know. Yeah, you were having some technical problems too. You were texting me about. But
it kept like cutting. It kept like jumping like 6 seconds.
Like skipping, huh?
And so,
skipping.
And it kept like skipping, and it was like weird because I'd be like, they'd be like saying something, and then it would like cut to like repeatedly raped, and I was like, oh, like, oh god, like it just kept. It was like I was like, this is jarring for me.
When you text me, I had to go back and rewind and make sure it wasn't doing that to me because it was like the editing is jarring. You know what I mean? Sometimes like there's a scene will end, and there'll be like just a couple seconds between dialogue in one scene to cutting to in a completely new location with new characters, and then dialogue beginning in that scene. There's not like very rarely is there like an establishing shot. That's why I say it's like almost like the conversation continues, but it's with a different character. But it's the author being like, "This is my thesis," you know.
Yeah,
not in a bad way necessarily, but anyway. Thanks guys for those comments. This movie's cool. This made me really want to actually watch The Guard, so I'm gonna have to figure out what the fuck that's about exactly. I remember seeing the poster, and I know Brendan Gleeson's in it, and I knew it was directed by Martin McDonagh's brother. So the same exact knowledge I had of this movie, but now I've seen this movie, so I can kind of say, oh, yeah, Jonathan Gleeson, I know his vibe. So we'll find out. I'm going to find out what that genre is, and I'll put it on one of these months. Whatever the fuck it's about.
We got to do that. I think it's supposed to be
security guards.
Serious. I think it's the serious version of Hot Fuzz. Like I think there is like a big conspiracy with a town or something.
Nice.
And like a small-time policeman or something. Yeah. Anyways, I don't know.
Nick Frost is in it. Yeah.
I watched right, exactly. Yeah, they watch a bunch of old cop movies.
Yeah.
Real quick though, I also will be remiss if I don't mention the fact that I just learned in this film, Brendan Gleeson and Dom Holland Gleeson is his son. And
wait,
they have this scene. So
was that him?
The fucking murderer.
I was literally like, is that Dom Hall Gleeson?
He visits in prison.
And I was like,
his son.
I didn't look it up. No fucking way, because I know who Dom Hall Gleeson is.
I didn't. I mean, I do know who he is. But I didn't know. I was like, put together that that's his son.
I didn't put that together either. But I was like, oh, yeah. I'm like, is that Dom Hall Gleeson? Looks just like him. But then I'm like, no, that doesn't work because like, I was thinking in my head like the first movie that comes to mind for me is Ex Machina, which came out like a year with him in it, right? Which comes out like a year after this.
Right.
And he looks 12 in this movie, and he's like an adult man in Ex Machina. So I'm like, no, this kid's too young to be him. I guess a lot of those fuckers look, a lot of those Irish, Closer people too, probably looks exactly like Tom Hall Gleason. You know what I mean? I was thinking. And so I'm like,
right. Probably. But they did that though. They totally tried. They did makeup on him and they did his hair. They put a wig on him to make
he was
him
creepy. I wish there was
look weird and different. You know, like trying. I mean, they clearly is him, obviously, but it's like they wanted.
Again,
yeah, and it's funny that they had
funny.
a scene together.
That's funny.
And that was like the heaviest scene. And it was funny because he's like, they were talking, like Brendan Gleeson was like, oh, whenever we tried to like, when he's like, I wanted to work on it with him and I wanted to run lines, but he would get too nervous and he wanted to, he's like, no, I can't, I don't want to work with you outside of the scene.
Yeah, like, let's just
so
do
like
it.
they didn't do any rehearsing. Yeah, and they just got together and did it, and like it's a great scene. Also, another scene that could be kind of like cut. I mean, it does. I think he's a really important character for sympathy towards.
Again, it's like vignettes of like, here's the worst person I can think of. He's literally a cannibal serial killer. Instead of like, I just murdered someone in a food patch, it's a cannibal serial killer that can't find his last victim. Which I was like, oh, okay, so now there's a cannibal serial killer in this movie. Sure, why the fuck not? That we talk about for 2 seconds and never mention again. But forgiveness, everyone.
It paints the town.
Even because they're like, do they deserve your absolution, Father? And it's like, maybe they need it most. You know what I mean?
I love that. Yeah, I do like that line.
It's
like they're ones that would need it most.
But
so
I mean,
more.
it brings me back. It felt, that scene, while good, felt like a tool to like talk about the themes that they wanted to talk about instead of like something that like fit more naturally. Like, I don't know. Those are the little things.
I know what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
But that's the thing. That is kind
It's good,
of
though.
like
it is. That's the vibe.
it's part of it, right?
It is.
That's
It's
kind
part
of
of
the when it's like
I
it
see
is almost
that
overwritten.
I see that
but
now
it's right
in
on the
retrospect,
line.
where it's just like there are several of those scenes where it's just like, here are two characters spouting the philosophy of the shit I want to talk about.
Right.
And a lot of movies do that, but it's just like, by the time I finished it, I was like, okay, obviously that's like the vibe. But
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I think watch it a second time and you'll, when you watch it like 10 years from now.
Yeah,
again,
I mean, we'll watch.
you'll be like,
I'll watch The
okay,
Guard,
you'll-
and I didn't. Like I said, I did quite enjoy this. You know what I mean? Even though I think it's
right. But dude, that
got
Tom
some
Hall Gleason, he's in Mother, another
Is he in Mother?
religious movie. Maybe
I
maybe
almost
maybe
put
we'll see
Mother.
him again.
I almost put Mother on this week's poll, and
Maybe.
it barely didn't make the cut. So I'll probably put it on another one. Yeah.
Maybe we'll see him again.
Nobody's gonna vote for Mother, dude. We're like one of the only two people that like it.
Mother's one of the greatest movies. I love that. I like it's one of whatever. God, the director.
Aronofsky, man.
you know him.
Darren Aronofsky.
Yeah, Darren.
No.
Darren Aronofsky.
I'm just gonna put Noah on there, just so we can finally watch Noah.
Dude, put all of his movies because you can put the whale on there.
Yeah,
whatever.
that's
He
true.
goes to heaven.
Yeah.
He goes to heaven at the end of that movie.
I know.
Spoiler alert.
His movies are weirdly religious. Anyway,
I know they are.
stay tuned. I don't know which ones are going to be, but yeah, that's the theme of the month. So thank you for listening to this. If you're on the YouTube, hello. Everyone come over to the Reddit, talk to us about movies, vote on what movies we watch next. If you want to
come to YouTube, make a comment.
Yeah.
Leave a comment on YouTube.
Yeah.
We'd love that. Like, subscribe. I guess those are
if you want to, like,
saying.
subscribe to the thing,
like.
It couldn't hurt
Like,
you. We do a movie once a week, and so that's not too bad. I'll try
You
not.
could also subscribe to our Patreon, and that gives us.
Well, yeah, we if you want to give us a couple bucks, that'd be cool. I mean, we been trying to do more bonus episodes and stuff over there. If you think we got hot takes about other stuff, that's where you'd hear it. So, all right, alrighty then. I will talk to y'all next week.
See you later.
Bye.